One of the main types of animal tissue is muscular tissue, is composed of cells known as muscle fibers because they are elongated cells. We call them muscle fibers. These fibers contain actin and myosin microfilaments, which we study in chapter 1 in cytoskeleton, help to expansion of cells, gather and slide past on one another to perform a certain action of movement. Muscles also serve the thermal generating function. So there are two functions for muscle tissue. One, movement. Second is thermal generating function. Muscles are classified into three types according to their structural location in body: smooth muscles, skeletal muscles, and cardiac muscles. The smooth muscle, also called visceral muscles, visceral about being in wall of internal organs. They are characterized with the followings. The cells of or fibers with the smooth muscle are spindle-like with two pointed ends, and they are thick in the middle, sharp at the end. The muscle fiber is covered with sarcolemma, name of the membrane which covers the muscle fiber for smooth muscle is sarcolemma. The cell has one central nucleus, in center. The action of muscles is involuntary. Involuntary when muscles work not under the control of will, means someone cannot control their movement, we call them involuntary. So a question in ministry exam, why smooth muscle? I call it as involuntary muscles, because they are not work under the control of will. The smooth muscles are found like a location in the walls of stomach, intestine, blood vessels, other internal hollow organs which have cavity or have ability of movement. We need details about smooth muscles, especially to compare them with skeletal muscle or heart muscles. Skeletal muscles are voluntarily muscles, which means they can be controlled. They are attached to the bones like a location through bundles. How we said the smooth muscles found in wall of internal organs, but skeletal muscles are connected to the bones. When they contract, the body part moves. They have the following distinguished characteristic, how they are different from the smooth or heart muscles. The skeletal muscle fiber along cylindrical fibers, like in that form. It may sometimes stretch along the muscle like a bicep muscle, which is located in front of arm from one end to another. All maybe one, just single cell can extend. The skeletal muscle fiber distinguished with cross-lined appearance in dark and light spaces. These dark and light spaces, they are actin myosin fibers, which are abundant in skeletal muscles and make them to contract and relax faster. This arrangement gives the fiber a striated appearance, and for this reason we call them striated muscle. And like an answer of a question to ask why skeletal muscle are called striated muscle. Skeletal distinguished cross-lined appearance, dark and light spaces give this appearance to skeletal muscle cells. This skeletal muscle fiber is covered with a special membrane called muscle membrane. Is to show this membrane which covers the skeletal muscle is different from the smooth. It is different from the smooth muscle membrane which covers the smooth muscle fiber. The skeletal muscle fiber is multinucleated, means has more than one nuclei, and this nucleus not in center of cell, but it's peripheral positioned closer to the plasma membrane. The skeletal muscle fiber performs its function under the one's control. That's why we call them voluntary muscles. Heart muscles are involuntary about their working because they cannot be controlled. Striated muscles, because of they have dark and light spaces like in skeletal muscles, and found in the walls of heart only, has specific location but in some way similar to smooth muscles, and in structure also they can similar to skeletal muscle. The contraction pumps the blood out of heart. The stretch allows the blood to enter the heart is the function of heart muscle. The heart muscle fiber has physical and functional characteristics for both smooth, because they are involuntary, and fiber and skeletal muscle because they are striated. The heart muscle fiber is cylindrical in shape, which skeletal muscle also cylindrical, but it is smaller and much shorter than the skeletal muscle fiber with ramified. Ramified means they have what? They have branch. So one cell can be branched into two under ramification and can meet together again in that way. The heart muscle fiber distinguished with its longitudinal striation, so they are also called striated muscle because they have what? Many actin myosin fibers like in skeletal muscle. So our heart also can work first as skeletal muscles. So heart muscle also striated muscle. The heart muscle fiber are connected to each other. Their ends in differentiated places of their plasma membrane called intercalated discs, because blood pumped under the high pressure by contraction of heart muscles. So the connection between this muscle must be so strong according to others. So this connection point between two muscle fiber or heart muscle cell is called, have this name. The membrane of the heart muscle fiber is thinner than of skeletal muscle fiber, which an information we can use it in comparison. The heart muscle fiber contains one cell nucleus like that. It's centrally positioned. The table show us like a summary for comparison between smooth skeleton and heart muscles. Shape of the muscle fiber, like smooth muscle, spindle-like fibers point at two and middle is thick. Skeletal muscle cylindrical dog without ramification, but heart muscle ramified, cylindrical and shorter than skeletal muscles. Size of the muscle fiber, smooth muscle small and short, heart skeletal muscle, but they said they are long, big muscles which can extend from one side to another. We said in bicep muscles. Heart muscles, they are smaller than the skeletal muscle fiber. We said they are shorter and smaller. Muscle striation, smooth muscle, they are not striated, but skeletal and heart muscle, they are both of them striated. The nucleus, smooth muscle have one central nucleus, like what? Like heart muscle, but skeletal muscle more than one nucleus, which is peripherally positioned. About action, smooth muscles and heart muscles involuntary because they cannot be controlled, out of control of human, but skeletal muscle, they are voluntary because they be connected. We can add as 6 point to complete our comparison as location. Location, like smooth muscle found in the walls of internal organ like stomach, small intestine, large intestine, blood vessels, and other internal organs which have a cavity or hollow. Skeletal muscle fiber are connected to the bones. Heart muscle are found in the wall of heart only. Nervous tissue, the last animal tissue, serves the function of propagation, generating of nerve impulses and transport them from one part of body to the another in long distances. It is composed of nerve cells, special kind of cells which we call them neurons, and supported by companion cell within the nervous tissue known as neuroglia. The nerve cells neurospecialized composed of three main parts. The cell body, it resembles the enlarged part of the neuron. So what we see in this shape, the part of neuron which contain nucleus and enlarged part is called the cell body. Cytoplasm contains the neurofibrils and the nucleus granules which serve as protein synthesis sites. Nucleus granules like what? Like a group of ribosomes which produce proteins. Because the neurons or nerve cells always their own action to transport impulses from one cell to another, and the chemicals which are transported are mainly proteins, so they need to produce high amount of proteins. So the group of ribosomes, we call nucleus granules, are positioned near the nucleus in cell body of nerve cells. Dendrites, these are extensions or thin structures that arise from the cell body. So if we draw cell body in that form, so what are thin extensions connected to the cell body in many numbers? They are dendrites. They serve the function of transmitting signals or nerve impulses to the cell body. So always they receive information or impulses and transport to the cell body. Cell body transports this impulses by neurofibers to the axon. It's an extension that transports the nerve away from the cell body to the next neuron. So another neuron again receives this impulses by what? By their dendrites. It is usually single and long. So dendrites, there are numerous thin projections arise from the cell body, but axon generally one single and long thick extension which connected to the cell body. And neurons usually classified according to number of extensions that arise from the cell body into monopolar neuron, bipolar neuron, pseudo-unipolar neuron, or multipolar neuron, and we study them on the picture. So pseudo-unipolar neuron, like what? One cell body has only one extension, but after this extension divide into two. One side acts as axon, one side acts as dendrite. So not really unipolar or multipolar neuron, but it's look like. So they have the pseudo-unipolar neuron or unipolar neuron. We use the same picture. Bipolar neuron, one cell body but two extension connected to the cell body. One side work as dendrite and one side also axon. The multipolar neuron, we can see there are many projections connected to the cell body, so they call it multipolar, one single axon and many dendrites. And this picture's important to remember. We said in nervous tissue not just made up of nerve cells. In addition, there are some companion cells which help neurons to do their function properly. We call them neuroglia. They form the largest part of the nervous tissue. Largest part of nervous tissue means they are more in number than neurons, about 1 to 50, like one neuron by 50 neuroglia, like assistant for neurons. Each neuron has 50 cell counterparts of neuroglia. They occupy more than half of the brain volume. More than half of the brain volume. Their main function is to provide support for neurons. How? Like you in previous years, you may remember the axon of neuron may covered by a medullary membrane, which called as Schwann cells. These Schwann cells are kind of neuroglia which support the neurons. Also, they support or help neurons to, like what, devour bacteria, work as what? Defensive cells, and clean the tissue from cellular crumbs.